It's pretty much impossible not to think of Las Vegas when you're talking about Nevada. And it's impossible to talk about Vegas without talking about casinos. And many of those casinos were owned and operated by the mob. Your pinstripe suit wearing, big hat having, Tommy gun spraying type fellas, right? Big boned lads. Toothpick having lads. Come on, Sam. I'm gonna crack your jaws, eh? Come on, you punk. Put 'em up. Now, one of the tactics to get people into these casinos and get them gambling and spending all their greenbacks was to offer prime rib at a super reduced low rate. Basically, sell a huge, delicious chunk of beef on the low to get people to come in and spend on the high. Thus, the connection between prime rib and Vegas was solidified. But it's not just prime rib. We have a couple other things that are very old world Vegas-y that we're gonna talk about in this video. Let's make Bugsy Spiegel proud. Few things are as OG as the classic standing rib roast, right? This is just ribeye. This is a bone-in, essentially 3 bone-in ribeyes that when cooked a certain way and sliced a certain way, people call prime rib, right? This is a 3-bone roast, obviously. I'm actually going to cut the main steaks off of this bone so that we can season it on every side. Just gonna follow the bones with our sharp knife here. All right, so check it out. These are our bones. This is our main ribeye here, that beautiful, glorious hunk of boeuf. So I like to do this because 1, it makes carving easier at the end, right? You don't have to worry about the bones. You can eat these separately and just focus on slicing this thin. And 2, it allows us to season every side, including the side that would otherwise be covered by the bones. So speaking of seasoning, you could hit this with salt and pepper and that would be good and fine. But I went ahead and made our own little spice blend here. It's kind of like a bootleg, if you will, version of Lowry's seasoning salt. You know that classic bottle? We'll put a picture right there. Everybody knows and loves it. This is my version of it, and if you want it, it's gonna be available on the Patreon, but again, totally optional. Salt and pepper would be totally fine. So we're just gonna hit this all over and be liberal. You can take it. It even looks like Lowry's. Look at that, dude. Wild. I'm even gonna season the other side of this bone here, all over. Like I said, liberal, all sides. All right, now we are just simply going to put this thing right back on top here and truss it together. If we didn't truss this thing, remember it would just fall right off the bone. Basically, this is just holding it together so that it's one big cohesive roast. Definitely not optional if you're gonna do this technique. Just grab yourself some string, no need to get fancy with it. Tie her up. I'm gonna go 1 loop, 2 loop, and that will allow me to cinch the roast and it won't come loose again as easily. Perf. And if you wanted to, you can score the fat cap before doing this whole like trussing situation here, but you'll see why later. We're not gonna do that. Plop our boy. Look at that beautiful cap right here. And just to ensure that it doesn't burn too much, we're just gonna add a little bit of water to the bottom so that as the drippings come, they don't just char and smoke out, even though we're gonna be cooking at super low temps, but that's just good form. Probe right in the middle there, put it all the way in, take it back a little bit. Great. All right, now we're gonna do 200 for 4 hours. Remember, we want this thing to cook super slow so it's even throughout. That's the marker of a good prime rib. If we went too hot, you'd have those brown edges around the sides and that pink center. Still tasty, not a prime rib. Every good prime rib needs a great horseradish sauce, so that's what we're gonna make. Here I got some chives. All right, let's see how many chive comments we get. Are these up to your standards? Must have perfect chives. Creme fraiche, our base. Some of those beautiful chives. Prepared horseradish. Remember, we like horseradish in these parts, so I'm going fat scoops. All right, black pepper and kosher salt. Mixy time. Now, we didn't add any acid in this, if you recall. And that's because the creme fraiche is tangy in and of itself. Wonderful. Oh yeah, nice and horseradishy. You're gonna wanna leave this in the fridge, 30 minutes minimum. You wanna let these flavors kind of meld together. The sauce is gonna get better as it sits. You could even do this up to like, a day, 2 days in advance. All right, here we have some beautiful little medium-sized shrimps here. Head on, shell on, of course. That's how I usually like to buy my shrimp because I like to suck the juices out the head. But don't worry, if that spooks you, today we're not doing that. We're just gonna shell these out. I'm gonna show you a cool way to take the vein out with the shell on still. I don't even know if that's necessary because we're not keeping the shell on. Let's have some shrimp fun. While I got the shrimp out, might as well show you this technique here. You're gonna take a toothpick, a regular old toothpick, right? Bugsy Spiegel's toothpick. Sometimes you wanna leave the head and the shell on just for presentation reasons. What you're gonna do to remove that vein, right, that poo vein right down the back there, you're gonna curl that shell down to expose some of that flesh. You can see it's exposed. You're just gonna put that right through the center and lift, and a lot of the times, yep, right there, you can get that whole vein in one go. I literally just removed all of that shrimp poo while leaving that shell on. Now to do the rest, we're just gonna remove the head by pinching it off. Don't worry about that orange stuff. And then remember, we wanna keep that tail on because that's our handle for our shrimp cocktail, right? You wanna bite the shrimp and pull it out, have your little tail meat. So I'm gonna do my best to remove the shell, everything but that tail, essentially. Pretty simple to do. All right, so here the shell is kind of dangling off. Just pinch that tail to make sure you don't rip it off on accident. So now you have yourself a nice cleaned shrimp with its tail on and no poo down the back. All right, we got our shrimp cleaned and prepped with that tail on. These are the shells. Don't throw these away if you're using whole shell on, head on shrimp. This makes a wonderful sauce and or broth. But that's another video. Time to cook our shrimp. How are we gonna do that, you ask? We're gonna blanch them in what we call a court bouillon, right? It's a fancy French way of saying it's almost like a light broth, just with some acid and some other aromatics. So just pop a little lemon juice in there. Pop the lemon in there, maybe an onion, some parsley, some bay leaf. Of course, we got to season, nice and generous with the salt, and peppercorns. We'll just kind of let that hang for a second. Do you have to make a court bouillon? No. Will it make your shrimp a little more flavorful? Probably. Some people probably wouldn't even notice. You could just do this with salted water and it would be fine, but we're going old school today. This is definitely how they would do it in, a classic French bistro type restaurant. Even to this day, a lot of our like Western style kitchens are very European influenced, specifically French influenced. All right, so this is not gonna take long. Immediately pink. Crazy. And these are done. Just gonna shock them in that ice water. And they're just gonna solidify up real nice. What makes for a good shrimp and a good shrimp cocktail? It's springy and fresh and bright and almost like crunchy when you bite into it. That's what I want out of my shrimp cocktail. To me, that means the shrimp is fresh. So these are just gonna be ready to hang out while we prepare the cocktail sauce. Chop. About a cup of chop. Our good friend horseradish. Un, deux, trois. A little Tabasco for the kick. Worcestershire McDerby. 1 clove of garlic. Zest of half a lemon. Juice of half a lemon. It's gonna be kind of weird for some, but a little bit of vodka is gonna add a bit of a bite here. So, tiny bit of vodka. Ooh. Ooh. Then for seasoning, of course the BP, pinch of kosher salt, and of course, the God particle. Nobody really knows where cocktail sauce was invented. One thing is for sure, is that sometime in the early 30s to the late 40s, sort of in Vegas's mob era heyday, shrimp cocktail was largely popularized here in the United States and then of course worldwide. So that's why we're making it. Time to build the shrimp cocktail. Cocktail sauce. Fill that up to about there. Just gonna hang our little guys right along there. This is quite literally a shrimp cocktail. Look at that, ain't that nice? We're just gonna add a little bit of garnish on the top here. And then just some nice green things. We're gonna go dual green things today because I already have these nice, beautiful chives. I want a little surprise in there for people who want it. Look at that. Let's make a little forest for our shrimp to frolic in. We're just gonna rest some nice big flat leaf parsley things all up in the mix, maybe like poking out. We're gonna plant that forest. Don't be afraid to really get in there. We have our grass chives, these are the trees. And this is quite literally our shrimp cocktail. Look at that, doesn't that thing just look like it's straight out of the 30s? Come on, can you just imagine like Al Capone and a bunch of, I don't know, like flappers, that's the 20s, sitting around dunking their shrimp in some delicious cocktail sauce? I sure can. Now to me, nothing says old school Vegas or just old school bar culture in general more like a martini. Not just a martini, a gin martini. This is my gin of choice. Use whatever gin you'd like. You could also use a vodka if you want. Vodka or gin. For me, gin's a little more classic and I just like gin martinis more, so that's what we're gonna use. But first, I personally like my martinis dirty, on the dirty side, which means a little bit of olive juice, which literally is what makes the martini dirty, a splash of olive juice. It's a little salty, it's briny, it adds an extra layer to the cocktail, in my opinion. You know your boy is a fiend for the BC, so we're gonna make some blue cheese olives. Just gonna cut off a tiny little amount here. I'm just gonna do that for every single one, so that we're there. This is like my favorite part of the cocktail. That might be like a fat kid thing to say, but I am what I am. Okay, then, if you have a fancy toothpick, whip it out. I don't. I have regular old average Joe toothpicks. Swing. Those are our blue cheese olives. All right, let's make the cocktail. Gotta do some bar tricks, dude. All right, ice. We need ice. Nice amount of cubature in there. So we'll do about 1.5 ounces of our gin. This is 1 ounce. This is 1.5 ounces. Glug, 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 glug. I think I have 1.5 ounces left in this bottle. All right, in with our gin. Spill half on the cutting board, that's fine. Dry vermouth. There's a lot of different kinds of vermouth. This is dry, not sweet. Do about 1/2 ounce of that. So this is 1 ounce, we'll do like a half pour. Bam. If you don't like vermouth, you can totally just leave it out. Then remember, we're doing this dirty, right? So I like a little bit of tiny splash of olive juice in that. 1/2 ounce, maybe a little more. There you go. Now we stir. And we're just gonna stir this until the ice begins to really melt into the drink a little bit. About 30 seconds. You could also shake this cocktail. It leaves little ice shards at the top of the drink. I like to do that when it's like a not dirty martini and it's got a lemon twist on it. But these have olives and it's dirty. All right, now it's as simple as pouring the cocktail, pouring it into the right proper vessel. We have a chilled coupe, ice cold, and nice and stirred. We're gonna pour that in. This should be a super cold cocktail. Got our blue cheese olives just right in the bottom of the cocktail there. That's literally it. The gin blue cheese olive dirty martini. Because when you're in Vegas, you're gonna be a little dirty. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, my dude. Yeah. All right, so this guy has been cooking for about 4 hours at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. We cooked it to around 132, which should be somewhere in between rare and medium rare. Remember how we took this off earlier? Look at that. Look how easy that is. And you could cut these up, divvy them out, gnaw on them, you know, best part. Let's get to slicing. You know what, I'm going double knife because this might be hard for some of you to watch. But essentially, prime rib should have a bit of a crust, but really, it needs to be kind of opened up so you can see that pink inside. So this beautiful fat cap that would otherwise, you know, it's nice and rendered and would otherwise be good eating, and it still is good eating and you still could eat it. I'm actually gonna remove it. I'm just gonna carve down the fat cap, being careful not to get too much actual meat, just the fat. All down here, same thing. Just kind of getting most of that fat here. All right. So remember, we have the bones removed. We're nice and trimmed up. Basically, we're just gonna slice this up nice into, I would say like half inch pieces. So let's see what this cook looks like. Look at that. Evenly pink all the way around. That is exactly what we're going for. It's super tender, perfectly cooked. I mean, it's definitely old world. That's nice. We got some jus here, which is just a beef stock that's been reduced a little bit with some aromatics, dark, rich, salty. Oh yeah. Hot dang. Prime rib. Let's go. All right, this is how I would plate this up. Serve it at the table like this, but if I was doing it plate by plate, grab yourself a nice piece of prime rib. Just put that right on the plate. Doesn't need anything else but some nice mashed potatoes. And you can't have taters without a little scoop of gravy. Pop that right there. Right in the middle. And of course, we're going chive crazy today. I'm gonna do that over the steak and a little over the potatoes, why not? And then just a little more jus. You want that prime rib sitting in its jus. Tell me that's not nice. That's nice. Oh, and I almost forgot, very important, the horseradish cream sauce. All right, let's do this in proper order here, right? So you're sitting at the casino or a bar or a restaurant in Vegas. You might have yourself a cocktail. Tasty. Tasty. Maybe the person you're waiting for comes to order an appetizer. Shrimp cocktail. Yeah, I'm just going in here. You know, when in Vegas, right? It's very important you shock your shrimp. You want that bouncy texture. And also don't forget, in the tail is a whole nother bite. Then you're done with your app, you have some great conversation going, you know, lying to your person you're with that you're up, and you get the steak. Not just any steak, this, the prime rib, the king of steaks. Look how tender that is, dude. I don't even need a knife. I probably could do this with my fork. Nope. That is nice. I'm going to, of course, dunk it in the sauce. Going steak by itself. Gosh dang, Capone. I should say Bugsy. That is nice. A little bit of the mashed tartars. Look how glossy that is. These are like movie potatoes. That's good stuff. You know what it tastes like? Opportunity is what it tastes like. TY so much for watching until the end here. If you're a high roller, you already know, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're feeling lucky. The best way to support the channel is over on Patreon. It's literally like $5. You get a bunch of extra stuff, bonus recipes, opportunities to win cool prizes. If you want that Lowry's recipe, that's gonna be over on the Patreon. Share this video with your friends and fam. That would be very helpful for that. I'll give you a little kiss if you do that. Next episode, we are heading over to New Hampshire. If you think you know what we're gonna make, you know the drill. Write it in the comments below. That's all I got for you this week, so until next time, take it easy.